Hey, and welcome. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. Got a lot coming up for you this hour. We're going to go through Joe Biden's inaugural address as the 46th president of the United States. Technically, he's actually the 45th president because Grover Cleveland was president twice. But sure, he's the 46th president of the United States. Next hour, we'll be going through President Trump's farewell and what we can expect from a Biden administration. Nothing particularly wonderful. So the events went off without a hitch today. Sort of an odd feeling because obviously we were watching an inauguration take place in the middle of a pandemic. There's a military lockdown in Washington, D.C., about 15,000 troops in Washington, D.C. This hour, by the way, is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Your data is your business. Protected at expressvpn.com/Ben. So Washington, D.C. was largely locked down. The people who were at the event were not only all masked, which is usual, but also they were all sitting quite far apart from one another. With that said, the spectacle of it was still rather stunning, considering that you saw these 400,000 flags in honor of the 400,000 people who have died of COVID in the United States. The actual pageant and pomp of the thing were still pretty well done. And that's what you would expect. Now, I mean, to be frank with you, I'm not a big fan of pageant and pomp in any circumstances with regard to the presidency of the United States, simply because, to me, the president ought to be treated like a plumber. I think we should swear him in the back of a taxi cab, and then he should just start plumbing as soon as he gets to the White House. All of this, he's the leader of the country and the conscience of the nation kind of stuff. And I prefer my family to be my conscience. But in any case, it is what it is. So the activities of the day led off with Joe Biden being sworn in. Here was Joe Biden being sworn in as president. Now, you gotta give it to him. The fact is that this guy's been pretty persistent. He's been running for president since he was 30 years old. He's now 172 years old. So it just shows you that ambition, limitless ambition, and enough time can make nearly anybody president. Here was Joe Biden being sworn in today.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Yeah, sworn in by Chief Justice Roberts. So difficult to tell which one of the two is the bigger Democrat on podium at the time. Then Kamala Harris actually was sworn in before Joe Biden. So technically, because she was sworn in before Joe Biden, that means that she was actually Donald Trump's vice president for like a brief moment in time right there. So you could say, trivia question now, there was 9 minutes there where Kamala Harris was the first female vice president under Donald Trump, which is kind of weird. But in any case, she was sworn in. The best part of this was actually Sonia Sotomayor, who swore her in, botching her name while swearing her in. Now, I was informed reliably by all of our media sources that if you botch Kamala Harris's name, if you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, this means that you are a racist. So if you call her Kamala as opposed to Kamala, this means you are a racist. Remember, Tucker Carlson got hit with that charge. Here was Sonia Sotomayor botching it during her actual swearing in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
Okay, so we can dispense with this. So, it's always a nice American moment when people swear fealty to the Constitution. It's been quite a while since literally anybody who has sworn fealty to the Constitution in a public office has then abided by the Constitution, but it's a nice idea anyway. So then Joe Biden gets up and he gives his inaugural address. And we all knew what the theme of the address was going to be. It was going to be unity. Now, it's pablum. I mean, most presidents get up there and talk about American unity. But this one, for the press particularly, had special resonance because, of course, he was replacing Donald Trump, who they see as the most polarizing and divisive president in American history. Now, it happens to be true that Donald Trump was not Captain Unity. He's not somebody who tended to bring somebody together. But we've heard empty promises of unity before. Namely, Joe Biden's president, when he was vice president, was Barack Obama, who spent years proclaiming that there are no states, no red states, no blue states, just the United States. It was Barack Obama who pledged that we were going to unify as Americans. We're going to see beyond race. It was a magical moment. When he was inaugurated, he had like 75% approval rating. Most Americans were like, wow, what a great moment. And then, by unity and hope and changiness, Barack Obama proceeded to mean identity politics, divvying up people by race, forming coalitions of the ascendant to silence half of America, calling the rest of America a bunch of bitter clingers and racists, foisting on Americans a bunch of giant government policy they really didn't like very much, and using the power of the pen and the phone to override all limitations on the executive branch. That's what he meant by unity. So before I start celebrating the newfound unity in Washington, D.C., I have to ask what the unity means, because it's had several definitions over the years. Unity could mean that we are all unified in spending your taxpayer money, which they are. It could mean that they actually wish for us to share some certain common values like the First Amendment, freedom of association, freedom of the press, the ability to dissent, freedom of religion. We leave each other alone. That'd be a nice kind of unity, right? That there is a certain diversity within unity. We acknowledge each other's rights and then we leave each other alone. Or they could mean by unity, shut the hell up and do what we want you to do, because that is unifying. And it turns out that unity exists in a wide variety of areas of life. It can exist in democracies. It can exist in dictatorships. It can exist in everything in between. So what exactly does Joe Biden mean by unity we still have to find out how he's going to define all of that. In any case, Biden gets up and the media have been spending all day just on a Zoom call with Jeffrey Toobin. I mean, they cannot get over it. I mean, they are just ecstatic about everything that has happened. This is the moment in which they get relief, sweet relief. They're high-fiving each other in the streets. America is saved. People were tweeting out in the media stuff like, we overthrew the dictator. It's like, well, no, actually, if you just vote out the guy who is the president and a new guy replaces him, that is definitionally not overthrowing a dictator. But in any case, everybody was super excited. And this was the greatest inauguration address you've ever heard. According to Chris Wallace over at Fox News, he said this was the single greatest inauguration speech he has ever heard, that it may be the greatest inauguration speech since JFK in 1961. Now, there are things that to like about the speech. We'll get to it in a second. But at the end of this, is anyone going to remember a single line of the speech? Maybe one. Certainly not two. And Joe Biden won't remember either. Joe Biden gave an inaugural address. It was basically written in the stars that as soon as he spoke, the media were going to declare it the greatest address they'd ever heard. Suddenly, Joe Biden, who has never spoken well, is a master of just incredible oratory. The theme of his speech, of course, was unity, which is nice. I mean, I think we would all like a little bit of unity right now, like get together, be nice to each other. Some basic manners would be good. The question, as I keep saying over and over, is what does he mean by unity? By unity, does he mean shut up and do what I say? So here was Joe Biden suggesting, once again, unity, unity, and unity. He says America is facing challenges and that we need unity to overcome those challenges.
To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
It's a very nice idea, right? I mean, that we should all unify and we should treat each other decently. There's only one problem. What he means by unity is still up for debate. And as he would be short to explain, it turns out that a lot of you out there in the audience, you're not prepared for Joe Biden's kind of unity. You might be on the other side of that kind of unity. You might be one of those dark forces out there that's wrecking our unity. Here was Joe Biden on that theme.
I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart.
Okay, so here is where things start to go off the rails for me. So the first couple sentences there where he says that unity sounds like a foolish fantasy, and that the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. Well, at this point, you might want to talk about, some different visions of America. The visions of America that suggest that the government needs to be involved in every aspect of your life versus the vision of America that says that government does not need to be involved in every aspect of your life. That's a pretty deep division. The division that says that freedom of religion is primary and freedom of association is primary, and the vision that says that government needs to compel particular association because there are too many mean people out there, right? I mean, these are real divides. And what he could say is, and I want to hear all those opinions, and then together we can make the best policy. Instead, what he suggests is that what's really dividing us is that some people in America are just bad. Now, there are people in America who are racist. There are some people in America who are nativist or fearful or are interested in demonizing the other side. Okay, that is certainly true. But the real things that are ripping the nation in half is not about half the nation being bad. It's about one half of the nation having a vision for the country and the other half of the nation not really having the same vision for the country. He betrays no evidence in this speech that he even understands the other side, let alone wants to unify with them. And this was the problem with President Obama. Obama used to say this kind of stuff all the time, right? I want to get together. Oh, you and I, we should have a conversation. And then, if you don't agree with me at the end, it's because I didn't explain myself particularly well, or because you're a bigot. Those are the only two options. How about showing some belief that there's a point of view different than your own that might actually be right? How about a little epistemic humility? Now, I've lived long enough to see the decline in American politics. It did not start under Trump. It started under Barack Obama. It got worse under Trump. And I have no faith, or at least very little faith, that it's going to get significantly better under Joe Biden if he proceeds to speak words of unity and then push forward with an agenda of disunity, an agenda of polarization, an agenda of radicalism, and an agenda of using the reins of power in order to push for policies that crack down on the rights of individual Americans.